What we do is create that safe space so that a child's imagination can grow. We obviously are specialists in the infrastructure side, but we work with partners. We want to build and make an impact. We look at a project and we go, well, this project needs a feeding kitchen as well. And we work with partners who run nutrition programs. In the villages of South Africa, our product, it's basic infrastructure, but it supports nutrition, it supports sanitation, it supports learning. And that's what's key.
Hi, welcome back to the Zero Hunger Project. I'm your host, Suman Roy,
I'm Stacey Neal.
and today we're going to talk about a topic that's where change begins: infrastructure, equity, and the future of learning. So, who do we have on this topic today?
Well, all the way from South Africa, we have Warren Povey, who's the head of strategic partnerships at Breadline Africa, where he's spent the last 2 years turning collaboration into tangible impact. With over 16 years of experience across marketing, sales, and partnerships, Warren brings a rare blend of strategic insight, creative thinking, and genuine warmth to the mission of improving early childhood development in South Africa. At Breadline Africa, Warren leads efforts to transform unsafe learning environments by working with public and private partners to replace pit toilets, build safe classrooms, and create nurturing spaces where children can thrive. Love that. His approach is rooted in trust, empathy, and action, proving that real change happens not in boardrooms, but in communities. Warren is passionate about people and practical solutions, and he's a firm believer that when partnerships are built with both heart and smarts, they can unlock extraordinary progress. Whether he's negotiating with stakeholders or rolling up his sleeves on the ground, Warren's commitment to dignity, equity, and opportunity shines through. So you're a superhero, basically, is what I got out of that.
It sounds like it when you talk like that. Afternoon, though, from Cape Town, South Africa.
Hello
Welcome.
from Cape Town. So, Warren, thank you so much for joining. And I got to tell our viewers that Breadline Africa and Warren's team is our newest coalition member to the Zero Hunger
Yeah,
Coalition.
we
So,
love that.
thank
It's
you
amazing. Amazing,
for
amazing.
joining our team.
It's just great to be part of a good team. So thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. So, Breadline Africa focuses on building physical infrastructure, but the impact goes far deeper. How do safe learning environments shape long term outcomes for children facing poverty?
That's a good question. I think most questions around how to help are going to always provoke a bit of thought. So maybe I could help with creating an example. If I had to ask the two of you to go and turn off the lights where you are, turn off your laptops, and try and read a book, try and draw a colorful picture, it's very difficult. Your imagination is limited. So what we do is create that safe space so that a child's imagination can grow, child's imagination can thrive. We obviously are specialists in the infrastructure side, but we work with partners, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But when a child walks into a classroom and feels safe, you can see the difference already. We've seen classrooms that are collapsing in on themselves, and you can tell already that the children are there to basically be looked after until they go home with their parents later. There's no opportunity for learning in a situation like that. And in South Africa, we've actually just released the Thrive by 5 Index, which Data Drive ran a survey across the country across a year. Over 5,000 children were assessed, ELOM assessments as we used here. 60% of South African children are either falling behind or way behind. I know that we like to always say that 42% are on track, but the reality is 60% are not.
Yeah.
And that's where these safe spaces come in. And yes, it's not going to change the world, but it's a start. And that's all we want to do, is be able to play a role in correcting a child's life.
I think it'll change the world because when you have these conversations that we are having, uh, people are listening, people are seeing, they are looking into what you're doing, and maybe other parts of the world are facing the same challenges. So, thank you for doing what you're doing.
A lot of the work that you do has to do with creating environments that are dignified and safe. Why do you think these two concepts are so overlooked when it comes to food security and just children living quality lives?
So this will be my personal opinion, and I think that when it comes to what keeps a child alive, that's nutrition. So if I had $1 or R1 in our case, and I had to choose, I possibly would put the R1 in a child's mouth via nutrition than an infrastructure, because without the children eating, that they're not going to attend many schools. So yeah, I think in general, infrastructure is overlooked because it's something that everyone assumes to be there. Well, they clearly are going somewhere, even though they don't know that it's either under a tree or in a collapsing building. But they believe that, well, there's a registered ECD, so there must be a building. So it's ignored. And I think the other aspect is cost, where one rand could go towards food, or $1 could go towards food, where $1 isn't going to build their classroom. So that's also an aspect we need to take into consideration.
It's frustrating though when you're talking about highest priority needs, which is basically what you're saying, and they're all highest priority needs. And so people like you have to make the incredibly difficult decision of, is it today that obviously the baseline is always that kids need to be fed, but at some point these other things also need to have money that should be spent somewhere else because it needs to be also spent here. So I can imagine how stressful and frustrating making those decisions are on behalf of these little kids who can't advocate for themselves.
100%. And I think that's also why I don't want to say educate our donors, but we try to show them that we don't want to just build for the sake of building and have massification. We want to build and make an impact. So that's where we look at a project and we go, well, this project needs a feeding kitchen as well. We might not have the capabilities of running the feeding kitchen, but that's what partnerships is for. And we work with partners who run nutrition programs. And we say we're about to develop or finish a project with, in the villages of South Africa, we can call our product a state of the art, but it's basic infrastructure. But it supports nutrition, it supports sanitation, it supports learning. And that's what's key.
Are those partnerships in the form of corporate partnerships, community partnerships, probably a combination therein?
We can look across the board. So we've got our corporate partners who help us with the funding. We've got our community partners who help us to understand what is actually needed in the area. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of NPOs make is we're coming in to save instead of asking, what do you need? So we like to go into the community and speak to the leaders, speak to the tribal area, the chief of the land, and say, what can we do to help? Not, we are going to do this. And then the other side of the partners is obviously our other nonprofit organizations that do good work in this country and across the world. And then the other side is our government partners. I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Carry on.
So, I would like to know a little more about South Africa overall, the food security system there. Is there a national school food program there?
There is, which runs from your grade 1 to matric. Not too sure on the grades in Canada, but grade 1 to grade 12, basically, where national
That's us too.
feeding scheme is at the same. And the problem is, sorry, I chuckle because budgets aren't allocated correctly. So only a certain number of schools will actually be granted this food during the year or this budget. So we have a lot of schools that aren't getting any school feeding program assistance, and they rank it based on quintiles. But in South Africa, we still have a bit of a history of our segregation and zoning. So certain schools fall within a high income zone, but they deemed a low quintile school, unfortunately. So they lose out because they get painted with the same brush as a almost a private school.
Wow. Okay. So it is not universal. Everybody doesn't have access to it. Certain schools have access to it, correct?
Yeah.
Is it the same school every year? Like, how is it based? Is it based on I mean, how do you decide? How does one decide?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. And I think if we could get the answers directly from government, I would love to help. But from what I
Let's
know
call them.
is that,
You want to call them right now? I'll
sure,
call them.
hold on a second. I think the
Yeah,
numbers might be busy.
I'm good at stuff like
It's public holiday here tomorrow, so they might be clipped off already. So yes, to an extent, the same schools are getting it because they fall within a certain category. Uh, but unfortunately, as you know, population growth is a real thing. So more schools are coming up, which means they're not allocating funding for possible new schools or additional children, even. So that is a factor that needs to be considered. But yeah, unfortunately, not everyone benefits, and that's where I hate when we look at it and we say, well, the government should be doing it, the government should be fixing it. We're community members. Are we not part of the community? And I believe that we should all play a role in our community. So it's great to see when you go out into these areas and the farmers around the schools or the shop owners near the schools are saying, no, these are our children too. And yes, they don't contribute the size of a corporate donor to build, but they say, we'll drop off some staple foods, your maize meal, your rice, potatoes, etc. So I love the fact that in South Africa we have a saying called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the African proverb which means I am because you are. Uh, so without you, I am not. And there's another one if you'd like me to add some proverbs in there is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
together. Yeah, that's a gooder. Those are gooders. Um, so how then do you scale up with strategic partnerships? How, like, we know there's a problem. There's a massive disparity. There is, uh, you know, there are all of these problems that are sort of nested inside of each other. How do you rise above that?
Oh, yeah. So
How long is a piece of string, actually?
funding is a major concern because without the funding, we can't do what we do. But we are building these. Coalition is a strong word, but solid partnerships where we're working together more often. We see that what we can do together actually makes a difference. I mean, I'm only almost 2 years now within the organization. It takes time to build those relationships, the trust with other partners, but to show that, okay, now we've done one, let's do another one. Let's do another one. And some organizations within this 18 months or 19 months I've been here, we've done 3-4 projects together and spread them. So we've got one partner I've done 4, another partner I've done 4. And I think that's the key, is because I'm not saying we need to be picky and look for the most well-off organization, but the organization that wants to work together more. So that's really been a blessing in the past year and a half, is that we work together on one project. You focus on your specialty, we focus on our specialty, and we bring another person in to do their specialty. At the end of the day, the ECD or the Early Childhood Development Center has got a teaching program, has got a teacher skills program, has got a sanitation program, a nutrition program, and all wrapped in a safe infrastructure.
Yeah. So it's really incumbent upon you to understand your strategic partners and where their interests lie, because obviously, if they're motivated by the topic, they're going to lean in more. And, almost, I say this as having a past in fundraising. It's almost harder sometimes to find those people who are going to land the plane, as it were, versus just getting somebody to write a check. Because writing a check is one thing, but if you can't deploy the money in a way that is sustainable, that's useful, then it's almost it's a waste of the money. So I imagine there's a lot of juggling. There's a lot of handshaking and capacity building and relationship making that has to go on that is sustained and protracted over time.
Definitely. So what we've done at Breadline Africa now is to change from the massification approach where a donor gives us money, we build and we leave. Because, like you say, a building is not. I mean, what happens now in that structure when we leave? We don't know. Is there any teachers that are qualified? Are they going to be able to teach the kids? So what we've lent towards now is more of a partnership project approach where a partner will approach me and say, listen, I've got this project. And so we already know there's someone there. We know that someone now is running a program within the walls. We go, okay, well, if you're invested, let's do this together, and we'll fundraise together. And that's been the approach we've used is partnering. I mean, we talk about collaboration and partnership so often, but we can prove it. That we work together, we fundraise together, we share our skills together. And at the end of the day, these children have a chance.
Absolutely. So, when we are talking about food insecurity in South Africa, certainly it's a huge problem, especially with malnutrition. I think the last data I saw was around 15 million uh, people in South Africa is considered to be severely food insecure. Uh, do you know of any new programs, policies that's coming out from the government side that is working towards that?
Not in particular. Sorry. Our government is going through a bit of a transition at the moment with from one leading party to a unity party, if we want to call it that, a government of national unity, which has been great to an extent because it holds certain departments accountable. But there are organizations like yourself who are pushing hard for this across the country. I've introduced you to a few over email, but this is where we work is infrastructure, and I don't want to step out of my lane, and that's why we bring in a nutrition partner that knows exactly what's happening and how we can support them.
Now, from the infrastructure point of view, is there, like, for example, in Canada, we know that we need a lot of, especially in the north, we need a lot of infrastructure for food security, and that is a huge challenge. Do we have similar challenges there as well?
I think anything in South Africa grows legs. So if it's not secure, there is always an issue of the crime aspect. And let me defend this statement because I don't want to give South Africa a bad image based on that. Because if I was hungry, I would take it too. If I had to take something to feed my children, I would do it because unfortunately, that's
So
how
would I.
dire situations
Anybody?
are.
Yeah.
So situations are bad in certain areas, and I don't blame people for that. It's other criminals, of course, we can talk about that have an issue. But if I'm going to be able to take someone's fruit off their tree to feed my child, so be it. But what we do is we work with feeding experts, firstly, the ones that run nutrition programs. So they will come to these ECDs and distribute food packs for nutrition for breakfast, lunch, and obviously, hopefully giving them a meal to take home. And then the other aspect is we have partners on the ground that are creating jobs through agriculture. And what we're doing now in one project, it's quite a big project around the just energy transition, where we are discontinuing or dismantling power plants and turning them into solar. And these towns are falling apart around there because they used to work at the power plants, at the mines, and now these are going away to create solar panels or create solar energy. And what's happening now is we're looking at, well, how do we upskill the people that are still left in the town? And we have a partner that will build tunnels to grow agriculture and teach the community how to grow, and then use that to sell at a market or transport to the major city near them. So we do our best, but our focus is obviously supporting these partners with infrastructure. And our biggest asset is our feeding kitchens that we create.
Fantastic.
We talk a lot about on this podcast the difference between aid and development, and creating aid being sort of the triage approach to dealing with crisis immediately versus how do we build these long-term projects that are self-sustaining and capacity building and that are culturally relative to the communities that are going to use them. And I think that's probably the linchpin of your thinking around this as well, is that you really need to put the power in the hands of the people who are going to be living and breathing this long after you sort of exit stage left, as it were.
I mean, I think there's a very common phrase, teach a man to fish. And that's the aim, is not to catch the fish every day and bring it into the market for them. It's let's create a skill. Let's help them find a sustainable way to live while we leave. So that's our aim in the infrastructure side, is to say, fine, we've created the space, we've brought a partner in, and around this, let's create a community that can come and learn through our buildings.
I ask these questions, Warren, of everybody who comes on the show, and sometimes I flip them around, and this time I'm going to flip them around. So my first question to you is, what is the one project that you're working on that you wish got a little bit more air, that you were able to like talk about a little bit more, that saw a little bit more daylight? Is there something that you're working on, or because you probably talk to a lot of people all the time, what's the one thing that never comes up in conversation when you're home later and you're like, damn it, I didn't get a chance to bring that up?
There's so many. That's the scary part, because we'd work across, let's call it sanitation, then education, then nutrition on structures. It's
Yeah.
I'm trying to be diplomatic with the sanitation side of things, because a child should never be sitting on a pit toilet. And unfortunately, in this country,
No.
we have deaths every year of children falling into these toilets and drowning. And I think
Yikes. Oh, God.
yeah. And we don't talk about the fact that their friends watch them fall.
No.
So there's that aspect that shouldn't be a reality in anyone's life. And this is something that needs to be brought up, because I talk to friends, and they realize they didn't know that these are still a thing in South Africa. And yes, we are helping and working closely with government to get these removed. But on top of this, I think, just to roll into nutrition, is a lot of children don't eat, not because there's no food, but because they don't want to go to the toilet. So there's another aspect that infrastructure helps nutrition.
See, these are the types of conversations that are so vital, because I guarantee you the average person has no concept that this is even an issue. I mean, I lived in India for a couple of years and traveled back and forth for a decade. Suman's from India. We understand the whole concept of a pit toilet and where those are located, how they're maintained, all of those things. But the average person has never seen one. They don't understand anything about it. And the fact that this is a real concern about preserving children's lives is like mind blowing. It's why travel is so vital. It's why having these types of conversations, it's what the internet is supposed to be about, is talking to people on other parts of the planet who are dealing with really like serious problems that aren't culturally relative to us at all. And this is how we learn about these things.
Absolutely.
And disseminating this information is so incredibly vital.
100%. And what you just said is kids don't eat because they don't want to go to the toilet.
I mean,
think about that for a second.
The average person in Toronto would have no concept of what that's even about.
When they're talking about in Africa, kids don't eat, their first thing is because they're poor, they don't have food. And probably in some cases that's the case. But the whole point about them not eating because they don't want to go to a toilet?
Yeah.
Can you imagine sitting in the so-called developed countries, or in North America or Europe? That's insane.
The things I've seen are mind-blowing. And then to see, when we have a new facility, and to see a child pull the flush for the first time, to see water flushing in a toilet, and their face look at me again. It's not, I mean, it's cute. But it's unbelievable that is a reality, that water flushing is something that we take for granted.
Yeah, I mean, that
100%.
would be a like life-changing, ground shifting. First of all, you're using clean water, quote unquote, clean water to flush a toilet. So for the average person who doesn't have access to clean water, the fact that you're using it to flush a toilet is probably pretty mind-boggling. But that's also the assumption is if you have fresh water to flush a toilet, then somewhere you also have water to drink, which is what my hope is. Maybe that's too far of a leap, but I'm hoping that
No, but you got a point.
building
Yeah.
these buildings means you also have water you're drinking. So to that end, and in the vein of this, my other question is, what's your best case scenario for strategic partnerships for children in South Africa? What is your pie in the sky best case scenario? If I could wave a magic wand right now, what would you be hoping for?
I think similar to what you've got going is this coalition. Unfortunately, I think there might be a conception that everyone is working against each other for a donor to fight for the donor. If we could create this, let's call it a coalition fund that a development bank runs, or and one organization, their focus is finances, they run it, and they do the payments to the other organizations to get the work done. There would be no fighting over the donor. We're all fighting for one donor to get into the same fund, and we can then do projects one by one and go, now we need to build this one. We move out, the next partner comes in. Our aim is to obviously cover the 5 components of the nurturing care framework. So if we can do one and someone else can do the other one, and then and so on and so on. Firstly, it's going to create jobs, because at the moment nonprofits are running bare. We run with as little people as we can because of funding. Once you start training up people within the communities to go, okay, yeah, you're going to now be assigned to this ECD, and then make sure that they have teacher training. Once you're done, you're going to move to the next. The whole community gets the whole training. Each organization will grow. So yes, in a pie in the sky. And just to add a cherry on top of the pie is government's assistance. To say, you know what, we're going to also contribute towards this budget. We are not going to be in control of the budget and determine who wins the tender and who determines the building and the supplying of nutrition, sanitation, teacher aids. So yeah, I think this pie needs a base, and that's the organizations all working together, and the fluff can be the creation of the jobs on top of that.
Love that.
Love it.
I also think it's important because I imagine funding is party dependent in the government. So it would be great to remove. How far away are you from that pie?
I would say we've got mini pies at the moment. So maybe your mini donuts at the moment, where yes, there is a little treat in the box, where we are working with a number of partners on numerous projects. But it would be great to have the big pie where there's no fighting over funding. I'm not saying that it's out there and it's obvious that fighting, but with USAID pulling out, a lot of our current donors have had to shift some of their funding. So indirectly, we've lost funding, even though we weren't involved in the HIV prevention. But those donors are now saying you need to cover for that. And that means that some organizations like ourselves, like the other partners, lose a share, which means we now need to fight for the ones that are still out there. And I use fight very lightly. I mean, we literally are all working together. Unfortunately, someone needs to get the funding.
You certainly gave me some ideas on with our Zero Hunger Coalition, what to make our pie in the sky. So thank you for that, Warren. We really appreciate that.
I think you might actually be a superhero, Warren. I don't think I was wrong.
I appreciate the kind words, but there are people out there.
I think you're a superhero among superheroes. Let me say that.
Avengers, we're all in this together.
There you go. There you
go. Warren, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining in, and especially on your vacation time and chatting with us. This is our audience is going to really enjoy it and learning a lot about South Africa and the issues that is being faced. So thank you.
We appreciate your time, Warren.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to working more on our coalition with Zero Hunger and then creating our own coalition this side.
Love that.
Amazing.
Love that.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Cheers.
The word of the day, Ubuntu.
Love it. I love
And-
it.
And you believe it or not, in the last 3 days, this is the second person who talked about this word.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at a conference in Edmonton, and this lady talked about the same thing. I am because you are.
Yeah.
Such a powerful word if you think about that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack.
God, the whole pit toilet thing, I can't handle. I mean, I get the sanitary aspect of all of that, but then now I have this image in my head, which will never go away, of a kid in there, and then other kids can't get him out, won't get him out. I mean,
It's difficult, and I talked about it in the episode as well, but the whole point about kids not eating because they don't want to go to the toilet.
I know.
Like, I don't even know how to comprehend this.
Well, and I mean, I will say this again because it bears repeating. This is why we have these conversations, because yes, this is not necessarily a topic of conversation that comes up with all kinds of people, but it's also a concept that wouldn't likely show up on a whole bunch of people's radar either. And so in the absence of traveling to places like South Africa and India and seeing these things firsthand, which a lot of people can't do, hearing about these things from people firsthand is the only way that they're going to learn about stuff like this.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those byproducts of being in an environment where the population has outstripped its infrastructure, and it has to adapt in ways that people in the developed areas wouldn't consider.
And people can't even comprehend. I work in this industry, and I cannot comprehend that a kid is not eating because it's not because there is not
He's
enough
afraid
food.
of the bathroom. Yeah,
Like, I just can't comprehend this.
I know.
And especially for people living in the North Americas of the world who have kids, can you imagine?
No,
Can you imagine?
I'm not joking when I say that that's going to haunt me forever.
Yeah, it will. And infrastructure, yes, it is. When we are talking about food security primarily, the infrastructure that we generally talk about is very different than this kind of infrastructure.
Yeah.
We rarely even think about this, but it is so critical.
Well, I mean, it's everything. They can't function without it. You can't cobble together, opportunities and provisions for people without having some kind of a framework or blueprint from which to build. And here, when we talk about our infrastructure, it's so nuanced and layered and developed, and now we're going into sort of the detail work. And when you talk to people like Warren, it's like, oh yeah, no, we're like two boards nailed together. That's our
Exactly.
infrastructure, like we're doing the best we can with what we've got. And our $1 our $1 has to go to 60 different places.
100%. It is a whole different world, and I'm glad Breadline Africa is doing what they're doing, and their partners and their coalitions are working together. I am so excited about the Zero Hunger Coalition.
Yeah, that's huge.
To get everybody around the globe, not only have these conversations, but I can guarantee you what Warren is talking about in Breadline Africa, somebody in Asia or some other countries in Africa is facing the same thing.
And it's some other, organization in Warren's neighborhood is having that conversation. Like,
100%.
Right? Warren's next meeting is that conversation.
Probably.
So I these are the times where I get all like pitchfork and torchy, like I want to get out of I either want to burn everything to the ground or I want to fix everything instantly. And I never know.
And sometimes you got to do both.
I guess so. And I never know which wolf to feed, as it were. But like, I really want to just, the amount of money that gets donated to places here, for example, that could be supplanted by somebody else. There's money to be had in places like Toronto.
100%.
And if you took some of that money from people that I know who are really benevolent, generous donors that money could go so much farther in places like our north, in places like South Africa, where a
100%.
dollar can be stretched, you know, and needs to be.
Asia's, Latin America, all of it.
And that's the thing. There's an enormous sort of tsunami of need. And it's where it goes. So for me, it would be, you know, places like our north, for example, that is so under funded in literally
100%.
every way you could imagine. But then there are, like, again, I said to Warren, how long is a piece of string? Like, the need just never stops.
And I'm not trying to be a socialist here, but when I look at people's net worth being hundreds of billions of dollars, while next to it a kid cannot go to the bathroom, is not eating because they're scared of going to the bathroom. Something is.
I got to be honest with you.
right.
I think part of the problem is that people start sentences with "I'm not trying to be a socialist." I think that's a huge part of
I don't want to be labeled at the end of the day, but these are conversations as a normal person we need to have.
But this is it's a mindset that there's a label around that, and what you're talking about is actually just looking after people.
100%.
And we have fallen into this trope of calling each other things because
agreed.
That's
100%.
how this is all turning out as it happens. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the idea of socialism, the idea of a social safety
it's
net.
not about the idea of it.
Yeah.
What is the label. That is where my issue is.
Yeah.
These are normal conversation. Anybody with this much heart should have these conversations.
Yeah.
It is not about I'm a capitalist or I'm a socialist.
And I don't know that you're not a socialist. I mean, have you taken a test? Have you been
I call it I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And that is what it is, and that is what we all should think about.
I think it's humanitarianism is what it is. I don't think we need to call it capitalism or socialism. I think it's just being a decent 100%. Human being.
And that is what it is all about.
Yeah.
So it was great having this conversation. Yeah. Until next week, we're going to keep on
doing the hard
being
things.
The human being.
Doing the human being thing.
And have these conversations. So if you haven't, please subscribe, follow us at the Zero Hunger Project. If you still haven't picked up the book, Zero Hunger Project, please pick it up because there is a lot to learn just from reading this. So look forward to seeing you next week.